On this episode of Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery, I'm going to talk about the 8 key attributes you need to pay attention to build an insanely successful fee-based financial planning practice.
Running a successful fee-based financial planning business is tough, and escaping the shackles of a commission-based financial planning practice is terrifying. When all you want to do is learn from those who know. Learn from financial planners who are there on the front lines doing it each and every day. What if you could just open their kimono and take a look inside to learn what works and what doesn't? Now there's a place where the secrets to running a fee-based financial planning business are revealed to those who believe. Fee-Based Financial Planning Mastery. Ease your mind.
Hi everyone, it's Scott Plaskett here, and thanks for joining me. In this podcast, you will learn what's working and what's not in the world of fee-based financial planning. In each episode, I'm going to open my kimono and let you take an insider's look at what's working and what's not in my practice to help you take your business to the next level. I've been a fee-based certified financial planner since the early 90s, so believe me, I know the challenges you're facing. So get ready to learn not from a teacher, coach, or guru, but from a colleague who's on the front lines just like you. And I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my email internet newsletter to get the most up-to-date tips on how to build and grow your fee-based financial planning practice by going to feebasedfinancialplanningmastery.com. Hi everybody, I want to talk about a few things that are new with me. So this section of what's new with me, you've probably heard a lot of others at some point, whether they be, motivational speakers or whoever, talk about the importance of a coach. Now, but until you really experience it for yourself, it's not as impactful. Well, this summer, I really experienced what it meant to be coached by a true coach. This summer, I joined a water ski club, and in 2009, for those of you who don't know, I had a very bad water ski accident where I was slalom skiing and got pulled over the front of the ski. Problem was my front foot never came out of the ski boot, and I snapped my Achilles tendon on my left leg just above my heel. Since then, I've had a focus on becoming a better water skier. The one thing I realized from those days was that I probably wasn't the best water skier, and in order to free myself from injury, I needed to become a better one. So with water skiing, it's an extreme sport that requires a lot of technique. My biggest set of challenges with the sport were that, the deep water start. If any of you have ever water skied before and tried to get up on one ski, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and that the deep water start on one ski is probably the most difficult part of slalom skiing. You can either start with one foot in the ski boot or two. And I'm kind of old school, so I always started with one foot in the ski. I'm not always successful at it, and by the time I get up on one ski finally, I'm exhausted, which kind of makes it difficult to practice. So, that whole aspect of water skiing is one thing that really, really gets to me and has gotten to me in the past. And it was like, God, I love water skiing, but if there was only a way I could get up without it taking so much of my energy. The other thing is I've never really had any formal training in slalom skiing. So, as a kid growing up, all I wanted to do was to be able to put up the biggest spray of water on my turn and try to touch my shoulder to the water while doing it. Well, it was all about impressing your friends. And it wasn't about technique. It was just simply about how you looked. And still, to this day, it's important how you look, and it is kind of fun to be able to impress people with the size of the wall of water that you're putting up when you turn. But the point is that if you want to get better at it, it was the technique that really allowed you to. So you add this to the fact that I've already ruptured the Achilles on my left foot, which is the front foot when I ski. I ski with the left foot forward. And as a result of the accident, I've really had a lot of muscle atrophy. So my left calf is a lot smaller than my right calf, noticeably smaller. And no matter what I do as far as working out and physio and whatnot, it's just simply not as strong, which makes it harder to do that deep water start on one ski. So needless to say, it's just very frustrating to really love a certain sport, but kind of hate it at the same time because of what has to go into it. So I found a ski club near our cottage, so I joined it this year. And this helped me. But, since you kind of paid for each set, And as I've always had the issues of getting up on one foot, I was really reluctant to kind of go to this session because whenever I got there, it was just like, oh my gosh, I've got all these people on the wharf and they're watching, and here they are all skiing the course and everything's great. And here I am trying to get up on one ski. Now, once I got up, my coach said after he saw me for the first lesson, he said, oh, you can actually ski. I thought it was all the problems you were having getting up on one ski. You were just a total newbie. But the reality is, he says, no, geez, you've got some great technique and we can work with that. But the point is that it was that damn deep water start that really, really held me up, and it's still, has always it's always been that really challenging thing. Now, on our cottage on our cottage lake, I was provided with an opportunity to join in a water ski clinic with a bunch of other skiers from the lake that was going to be taught by, get this, last year's men's world champion slalom skier. And his name is Aaron Larkin. So for those of you who are into skiing whatsoever, if you just Google Aaron Larkin, you'll see what this gorilla of a guy is able to do when it comes to slalom water skiing. And it's just amazing to watch him. And then came the day of the clinic. And here's what happened. Well, pretty much each time I went to start, it took me anywhere from 2 to 4 tries just to get up. But then when I was up, he had me working on some basic drills. And the reality is I felt like a rookie again. I felt just like I was right back at the beginning, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's kind of embarrassing and humbling at the same time. But what he was doing was, he says that, you can't learn the advanced technique until you have the fundamentals. And so the one thing I realized was that everybody he was skiing with, even the greatest skiers on our lake, he was kind of taking them back to the fundamentals, or as far back as he felt he needed to, in order to get them to build on a more solid foundation for what to begin learning on going forward. But the other thing was, when he was talking to me, he was asking me questions like, well, kind of like, when you ski, do you oftentimes get tired pretty quickly? Or, the day after you ski, does your lower back hurt? He told me not to fight and pull against the boat. So if you imagine what skiing is all about, you're being dragged across the lake, at about 30, in my case, around 32 miles an hour, by this boat that has a big V8 engine in it, very, very powerful boat. And he said, instead of pulling against the boat to try and go across, he says, you're never going to win that fight, but let the boat do all the work for you. He said to just don't rush things. He says, take your time, be patient. He says, most of the people out here at this clinic, they're doing so many turns, and they're going out there and they're going so fast. And he says, they're not fluid. They're not taking their time. He says, you've got to be patient. He says, your speed and everything will come, but just simply be patient. So, this really impressed me, because the questions he was asking me, really showed me he knew exactly what I needed to work on. He was able to cut through all the crap, so to speak, and just get to the thing that I really needed. Then, when I started going through the drills, after having, listened to things and really having him focus on the things that I needed to work on for me, all of a sudden it became less effort. And I began to cross the wake with really a lot more speed, confidence, and control. So he said that I was progressing fast because, after the first set, and then all of a sudden things started happening. He says, you're progressing really fast because once you get the fundamentals, you know what to do next. And all of a sudden, what to do next is going to come a lot easier. So, that was a really impactful experience to me. And then when I went back to my ski coach at the ski club, the day after the clinic, he said to me, he says, wow, he says, you've been practicing. And he said he really noticed a difference. The problem was I still couldn't get up on one ski consistently. So he watched me, and he sort of, watched what was going on. And we had a bit of a conversation about the history that I've been through and stuff. And he said, your skiing is really coming along. There's a lot more fluidity and everything. But he says, yeah, you're right. Just getting up seems to be a bit of a challenge. He says, so why don't you try a double boot slalom ski? He says, basically what a double boot is, for, again, those of you who don't know what the slalom skiing is as it sounds, it's 2 boots instead of 1, with a little toe strap that you sort of flip your foot into in the back. So you've actually got 2 feet fixed to the ski, and it looks a lot harder to get up on. But then he said, looking at you and knowing what you've been through, because of the type of injury you had, your left leg, which is the leg that requires all the strength in order to get up on one ski, probably isn't as strong as it could be. So he said, why don't you try a double boot ski? And that way you'll have 2 feet, which will just give you that more strength, which means you're probably not going to have to use as much effort to get up, which means hopefully you'll be less, fatigued, and you can actually get some good practice sets in. So I came home, found another boot from another ski, and mounted it on the back of my ski to make a double boot. And that night I read through all of the forums I could online to find out about, just to find out more about this getting up on one ski with a double boot. And, found another coach that was coaching a guy simply through a blog and teaching him all the tricks that he knew of about getting up on one ski. And other people were commenting in and chiming in saying, hey, yeah, I went from a single boot to a double boot, and here's my experience, and this is what I found really worked well. So the next day I hit the water and gave it a try. And after the 4th attempt, and I've talked about it before, I needed to what I call fail forward to figure out how not to do it a few times. So on the 4th attempt, I got up. I tried the first 3 times and really realized, okay, that wasn't working. And I tried something different. That wasn't working. Tried something different. And finally, I'd hit the sweet spot that allowed me to get up. So the 4th attempt, I got up, and it was actually amazingly easy to get up. And then that evening, I went and did it again. I got up on my first try. The next morning, I went again, first try. The next evening, I went again, first try. So, the moral of my story now is working with coaches is important, but don't just go out and find a coach who, find any old coach. You've got to find a coach for whatever you're wanting to do who's been there, who's done that, who's basically been in the trenches. My philosophy is always finding coaches who have proven themselves and actually have walked a mile in my shoes, so to speak. And so, my coach at the ski club, well, he coaches the Quebec ski team, and he's been ranked as one of the top Canadian coaches for many, many years. And he is an extremely accomplished slalom skier. Aaron Larkin, he's the reigning 2011 world champion. So, we know he's been there and done that. And it was just amazing how quickly he was able to. And this was one of the comments that pretty much everybody in the clinic was saying, is that he was able to narrow in on exactly what they needed to do to help them to get to the next level. These coaches they both came from a place of knowing because of personal experience. So this is my message to you. With my experience in the water skiing and whatnot, I'm having so much more fun with the skiing because I now know I'm building upon some good fundamentals. So when it comes to doing anything in your life, whether it be building your financial planning practice to going and learning a new skill of, a new hobby or something like that, find somebody who's been there before, who's done it before, and simply work with them. They'll be able to say, you know what, when I did that, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is how I solved that problem. That's one of the reasons why I'm involved with things like the strategic coach, because when I go on a quarterly basis to these sessions, I'm sitting in a room with people who have been there and done that. So when I have challenges and I bring it up with them and they say, oh, you know what, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm in a completely different industry, but here's what I did to solve that problem. I know they're coming from a place of knowing, and it's not just that people who think they know what they're doing. It's a group of people who know they know what they're doing. And that's so important. So when it comes to looking at coaching of any sort, make sure you're dealing with people who have been there and done that. So anyways, that's what's new with me. I'm having a tremendous amount of fun with the slalom water skiing. I'm kind of upset about the fact that our season's kind of coming to an end, but I've had such a fantastic season with that. So anyways, let's move on to the feature segment.
And now for our feature segment.
All right, so the 8 key attributes to building, and what did I call it before? To building an insanely successful fee-based financial planning practice. I've been working on these quite a bit, and it's amazing how when you focus on these 8 attributes, these really are the 8 attributes that a business, somebody looking to buy a business, these are the key 8 attributes that they would look for. So when I came across these, I thought, okay, these are pretty important, and then I basically dove into them and said, okay, how can I incorporate these into a fee-based financial planning practice? And so here's basically the results of that. So I want to talk about the 8 attributes because, the reality is at the end of the day, there's got to be an exit strategy. And, I know a lot of the people listening to this are just getting into fee-based financial planning and they're just starting their business. And so a lot of this may be beyond them. But you know what? I wish I'd gone through this information when I started, because this information would have allowed me to know what to focus my time on, because there's so many moving parts to a fee-based financial planning practice. And the question is, what do you focus your time on? I mean, you've got to get some cash flow coming in. You've got to get some branding, some marketing, some servicing. There's so much that goes into it. How do you know what to do and when? And so what I've done is, with these 8 attributes, it just simply allows me to say, okay, let's go through the attributes. I'm going to highlight the things that I feel are the most important, that I can work on the most, and then, or that excite me the most, and then dive into those things. So let's go through the 8 attributes. This may be a bit of a longer episode, but I think everybody's going to appreciate what we're doing with this. So the first attribute we're going to talk about is financial performance. So when it comes to financial performance, you're either going to have a high, medium, or low score when it comes to that. And really, financial performance is all about how successfully are you able to bring in profits to your business, okay? Because there's a certain point where, at the end of the day, there's nothing left over because you're just doing what you can. But eventually, you're going to get to a point where suddenly there's some profits that are being left over. So, when a buyer potentially is looking at your business, and again, this isn't just for buyers, but if you look at your business and always ask the questions, well, anything that I do, is this going to make my business worth more or less to somebody else? The reality is, at the end of the day, if you keep on focusing on with that perspective, at the end of the day, you're going to build a business that is so insanely profitable and so insanely fun that you're not going to want to sell it to anybody, because why would you? You're having too much fun and making too much money doing it. But the reality is, there may be a point there may be a day when you are going to be looking at selling this, and so you're going to want to make sure you're building your business on the foundation. Remember what I talked about in the What's New With Me section, where the Aaron Larkin brought me back to the fundamentals of what I needed to do. He says, because I can't help you build on crap. I need to get you to build on fundamentals. So let's focus on some key fundamentals that you can really build upon. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So let's now assume profitability is coming in. Okay, so you do have some profits coming in. Whatever that number is, I mean, people who've been in business for a lot longer, obviously you're potentially going to have higher profitability, but in any event, financial performance is a key attribute. You do want to pay attention to that. So you're either going to have, a lot of profits or little profits, but at the end of the day, you're going to have profits. You may, let's look at how an outside person would look at these profits. So we've all done this in the past. I mean, you may have decided in the past that you want to invest, say, $100 in a bond, and that bond is offering a 5% interest rate. So in other words, you paid $100 today for something that's going to be worth $105 in 1 year. Now, here's how the same math affects our business. Let's say your business generates $100,000 in pre-tax profits. So if you were a buyer and you wanted to generate a 15% return on that money, you would be willing to pay $86,957 today for the right to receive that $100,000 a year from now. So someone acquiring your business, however, they're not just going to look at 1 year, remember, because, and we all know this. I mean, every year, if we can continue to keep on moving forward with our business, that profitability should be coming in year in and year out. So somebody who's looking to acquire a business, they would say, well, you know what? I'm not going to look at just 1 year. I'm going to look at the foreseeable future. So if you project out for the next 10 years and assume that the business will generate $100,000 in pre-tax profits each year, you simply add up the discounted future values of each year's pre-tax profits. And if you do this for 10 years using a 15% discount rate, or the rate that the investor wants to make on that money, the present value of those 10 years is worth about $500,000. So the price an investor is willing to pay for an asset relates to how risky they perceive the future stream of profits to be. The higher the perceived risk, the higher the discount rate. So just to give you an example here, when you look at somebody who's saying, listen, the risk on your business of that profitability continuing is really, really low, so therefore they wouldn't necessarily need to command as much of a return. But if the risk is really, really high, then maybe they're going to say, listen, I want a 50% rate of return on my money because I feel that the asset that I'm looking at buying is fairly risky. Well, if you take a 50% discount rate, then you've basically turned that $500,000 number into just under $200,000. So it's a pretty significant drop in the value. So when you're building your business, you want to look at the different types of of revenue that's coming in, and ask yourself, is that a high risk, medium risk, or low risk type of revenue? Well, here's how I consider the risk level of the various revenue streams we as fee-based financial planners can generate. So the first one is annual financial planning and financial plan maintenance fees. Now, I see this as a very low risk type of revenue, because once you've basically got a client who has engaged in your services, signed the letter of engagement, and basically say, listen, I want to keep moving forward and I want to be part of this program, that renewal fee and those financial planning fees are pretty consistent. They're going to come in year after year after year. So that revenue stream is really, really low risk. All you really need to do is service the client and make sure that they're getting value for the maintenance and the oversight that they're receiving. Now, on top of that, we have annual investment oversight and integration fees. Now, those fees, again, are a percentage of assets that we charge, and so we participate in the management fee of those assets. And then again, once the assets are set, and as long as everything keeps going, and we've worked with good investment managers and whatnot, then those revenues are going to continue. So the revenues there are pretty low risk. Now, insurance revenues, this is on the other integration or implementation side of things. Insurance revenues to me are a bit of a higher risk, and I would say they're medium, if not high risk. And the reason for that is simply that those revenues are dependent on, me showing up and actually writing insurance business. And so as a result, I can't say that anybody else would be able to do it at the same level that I would be able to do it. So the risk on that is simply perceived as much higher. So, look at your revenue stream and ask yourself, really, are there ways of changing the revenue stream risk and turning it from a higher revenue stream risk to a lower revenue stream risk? So again, when you look at the investment side of things, traditional financial advisors work off of a commission model where they get paid on transactions, and so if they're not getting paid if they don't show up, well, that's a very high risk. So by following a fee-based approach, you're simply able to lower the risk of that revenue stream and make that a much more consistent revenue stream. So always pay attention to the financial performance of the revenue streams that you're bringing in, and the risk level that is being applied to that, and do what you can to find ways of lowering the risk on every revenue stream. The next attribute is growth potential. You see, when an acquirer typically looks at a business, what they're actually willing to do is they'll pay more for a business that they see has got a lot of growth potential. So let's take the previous example, into this example. $100,000 in pre-tax profits each year over 10 years, but let's assume that the pre-tax profit is going to increase by 15% a year. Now, what does that do to the calculation? Well, when you do all the heavy lifting and all the math, it changes the present value from a $500,000 value to a $1.2 million value. So you can see how that growth rate applied to a business can be just a huge, huge thing. So always make sure that you've got ways of increasing the profitability, increasing and growing your business. And so again, this is one of the reasons why we're spending time on this, because I've found that in the past, fee-based financial planners and advisors in general, they do tend to get to a point where they can't grow anymore. And so it's very challenging to grow. And so if you're at a point where you're looking at selling your business, it's hard to factor in a higher growth potential on that part of your business, because if you can't grow it, then I don't think another business owner will be able to either. So let me ask you this. On the growth potential, here's some of the questions you want to ask yourself. Could you replicate your business potentially in another city? I mean, now we're starting to think like a business owner. It's not just us. It's stepping outside and saying, how can I grow this business beyond me? Could you replicate the business in another city? Another question is, what would you have to change in your company for it to handle, say, 10 times the number of customers? I mean, just look at your business and say, if I had 10 times the customers coming in, 10 times the leads, 10 times the appointments, 10 times everything, what changes would I have to make in my business? So analyze that, look at that and say, well, should I not be starting to put some of those changes into effect now? Because if you don't have that foundation in place, you're not going to be able to handle the 10 times growth. And believe me, when things take off and you start to get all your ducks in a row when it comes to all the marketing and everything that I'm suggesting here, it can take off very, very quickly. And if you're not ready for it, then it can be a pretty rude awakening. Another way of looking at things is if someone handed you a check for $10 million, but there was only one stipulation. you had to use it to grow your company as quickly as possible, let me ask you this. What would you invest the money in? What would you focus on? What would you say, look, I got $10 million here and I can only spend it on growing my business. What areas would you spend it on? Well, that might give you a key insight into an area you want to take a look at in your business. So here are my thoughts on how growth potential factors into a fee-based financial planner's business value. Reliability of revenues is key, and every time we bring on a new client, we simply add the majority of the revenue to the bottom line. Since a portion of our revenue is tied to the markets, this portion will tend to rise over time, especially if we chose to work with quality investment professionals for our clients. But insurance revenues, they are transactional, but they're a nice diversifier to the other revenue streams. So, that's one of the things that makes our business so great is that we do have a diverse revenue stream that we can bring in. We're not just selling insurance. We're not just investments. We've got a combination of it all. So it helps smooth things out along the way. Especially, I've seen too many investment advisors who suddenly just said, well, I can't make ends meet all of a sudden because I'm not making any transactions. Well, live by that, die by that. So anyways, that's those are just some of my thoughts on that. Now, the third attribute is reliance, okay? How reliant is your business on any one customer, employee, or supplier? And this one can be a bit challenging. First of all, what I would do is I would start off, rank your customers and clients by the percentage of your overall revenue each represents. How can you increase the sales to your smaller customers, or find new customers so that you can add, you can lessen the reliance on the customers that you do have? Because one of the things you want to make sure is that you're not focused on any one specific thing. I grapple with this all the time. I truly believe that if you're not willing to bring on other financial planners into your practice, you need to cull your client base every once in a while to transition the clients who are not fully utilizing your services to another advisor who can service them at a level they would like to be serviced. Basically, you're going to get to a point, and it happens to every I don't know of any financial planner that it doesn't happen to, where you get to a point where you kind of get tapped out and you can't do any more. Bringing on another client becomes a stressful event, as opposed to an event that you should embrace and cherish. So what do? Well, you can either bring on other planners and advisors into your office, and you can start bringing them on. That adds its own level of complexity. Or you just simply start calling your clients and saying, you know what, I can't work with everybody, and I need to really focus on the ones that I can work with. And so that's why in a previous episode I spoke about that, is that you can't work with everybody. So really get clear on and start focusing on who is it that you can work with, and start culling your client base for people that really aren't ideally suited to the services that you provide. And you know what, we've all got that type of a client, and it's not that they're a bad client, it's just that they're not right for you. So they should probably be move on to somebody who is right for what they're looking for. I'm a firm believer in diversifying your suppliers, but don't ever what I call diversify your suppliers. You see, when I first started in this business, everything was all about investments. It was all about, the different investments, and you became an investment picker. You were you wanted to become known as the guy who could find all the best mutual funds in the marketplace. And so you were creating all these great portfolios of all these great mutual funds, and you had, the best investment. You were able to find the best particular mutual fund with Fund Family A, and then you went to Fund Family B and found the best one for the next component. You said, listen, I need to add a U.S. manager, so I'm going to find the best U.S. manager I can. And you had a great portfolio, but it was from 7 or 8 different companies. So you tend to, you really tended to spread your client's assets among many different companies. But you need to be much more strategic on why certain investment professionals are in your practice. Nowadays, it's very difficult for any one manager to really step totally above to say, listen, I'm so good at everything. But there are some out there. So spend some time on being very strategic on why a certain investment professional is in your practice. You see, we have in our practice private portfolio manager whose investment methodology and discipline I truly believe in. And this allows me to provide our clients with access to a manager who can assist them with individual securities. This guy is awesome, and he's got a strong discipline. He follows his discipline. He's got reasons for why he does things. He purchases individual securities for our clients. And our clients really quite like, for the right client, they really like that approach. They feel that they've got a lot of control. Now, we also have a sizable comprehensive investment counseling firm who we can turn to gain access to some amazing investment tools that really aren't available anywhere else. So, we turn to this one larger firm simply because they've got a huge toolbox, and we can really build really nice diversified portfolios, incorporate some amazing strategies into the portfolio. And for the right client, this is exactly what they're looking for. I also have an active management team that is a very low cost approach. And, for clients who are really fee sensitive, then it's a fantastic solution that we've been able to put together that allows us to, get involved with a very good actively managed program, but it's very, very cost effective. And so, we're not sacrificing performance, and, we're paying attention to the really, really fee sensitive client. Now, no one solution is better than the other. But we like them all for different reasons, and we have them all for different reasons because we have different clients who are looking and have different objectives, and so we want to make sure that we've got all the objectives covered. Now, what we're not doing is we're not then going much beyond that because it's like, why would we have two of the same thing? So, be very, very clear and strategic on why your relationships are with certain companies. And, don't rely on any one company, but don't diversify things and spread it out everywhere because, it's always nice to have an investment company or a manager or whatever, take your call whenever you call. We get a lot of attention from the firms that we work with because, we're a sizable portion of their business. And, it kind of... Anyways, they tend to see us as important in their business because, we probably have a high concentration of assets that they manage in the relationship that I have with them. So as a result of that, they pay attention. So there's some benefits to the concentration as well. But as I say, don't over concentrate and don't diversify. So find that happy sweet spot for your business. Now, the fourth attribute we're going to look at is cash flow. Will a potential acquirer have to inject a lot of cash into your company, or will the company generate sufficient cash flow? So, when your business is being built, and if you ever get to the point where people are going to be potentially looking at buying your business, they're going to look at the business and say, okay, can I just acquire this business and then that's it? Or do I need to then acquire the business and then inject a whole whack of cash into it in order to make things work? So what they're going to be looking at, you want the cash flow of your business to be quite high. And so, that is, again, one of the benefits of our type of business is that the cash flow generally is really quite good. It's, and some of the ways that you can make it better are things like, moving to a subscription service, productizing your offering. And that makes it simply easier to charge up front for your wares. The fee-based financial planning model is designed to enhance the challenges that most people face in business: poor, non-stable cash flow. So I recommend, there's certain things that you want to do when it comes to cash flow, and really, really focus on the cash flowing into your business and, designing things. And that's where the fee-based financial planning model is so ideal to this, because it simply allows you to create that more stable cash flow. So one of the stats that I track in my business, and this is one that I think you should really, really take advantage of as well, is, and I track this on a weekly basis, and it's what's called your solvency, or I call it my solvency. And what it does is basically you take your current cash position and you divide it by your next 60 days payable. So you basically forecast out and say, okay, over the next 60 days, what do I expect? What are the things that I just have to pay for? Things like payroll and things like rent and leases and all that sort of stuff. What are the next 60 days payable look like? What does it all look like? And you simply divide that number into your current cash position. So what does this do? Well, I was always looking for a way of just keeping an eye on the solvency of the business. And, up until the point I started doing this, I really had no idea of where things are at. Yeah, I was, had the financials going and stuff, but, it wasn't easy at that point for me. So I needed to find an easy way. Well, this way is fantastically easy. So look over the next 60 days and anticipate what your outflows are going to be. Divide that number into your current cash on hand. So the number of the value of cash that you have in your bank account today. So let's use an example. Let's say you've got $50,000 in cash on hand. So simply sitting in your bank account. Let's say your payables over the next 60 days is $25,000. So 50 divided by 25, that gives you a factor of 2. Now, a factor from 0 to 1.5, that to me is low. So in my mind, that's a number that says if I have a factor that's less than 1.5, I need to start focusing on building my cash position for me personally to be more comfortable. If my factor is between 1.6 and 2.5, now to me I'm sitting pretty. I always look for really 2. Once I can get above 2, then you know what? Things are great. 2.5 to and higher, you're probably sitting on too much cash. So what I would recommend at that point is either reinvest in some new marketing programs, start to deploy that cash and get it working for you, or simply move the money into some quality investments. In other words, you have too much cash lying around, not working for you. So you need to do something about it. Play with the factor. With this factor, because you need very quick ways of managing your business and you don't want to spend a lot of time on your financials. This factor to me, this solvency factor has been a godsend because it simply allows me to quickly take a look at things and I track it and I keep a history of everything. So I can quickly look back and go, are there any patterns that I'm seeing, from a cash flow standpoint? And the one thing I found, again, from a fee-based financial planning model, is that in itself helps to smooth your cash flow. And once you can build a certain level of cash flow and solvency in your business, then it allows you to make better decisions. Because obviously, if you're running at a solvency factor of say 1.5 or less, you may not want to deploy into some new technologies or new marketing programs. You may want to start finding ways of doing some of your organic marketing and get organic traffic to your website and that sort of thing versus going a paid route. But then if you've got, if you're flush with cash, then it allows you to simply look at some other more advanced techniques that would cost some cash, but you've got the money to invest. So that's from a cash flow perspective. Cash flow, cash is king when it comes to running a business. And so definitely focusing on that is important. Now, the fifth one is taking a look at the recurring revenue. Do you offer a consumable product that needs to be repurchased regularly? Okay, so an example of that could be toothpaste. An example from our business is, are there clients who are looking to invest on a regular basis? Well, that's, a renewable type revenue. Our renewable, another example in business in general, are things like auto-renew magazine subscriptions. So we basically say, listen, I'm going to keep on buying this subscription every year, so just keep on renewing. Here's my credit card information until I tell you to stop. The best, most stable type of revenue is our contracts. So you'll be familiar with this with your wireless phone contracts. Now, from our perspective, could you add a consumable element to what you sell? So, I look at it this way. That's where the monthly contributions are good because they keep people coming and getting engaged and keep on renewing into their assets so that their assets are continually growing, which at the end of the day increases the investment and oversight fee. Other things would be on an annual basis, just simply automatically renewing people into your financial planning program and the maintenance and the monitoring programs that you offer. And so that could be through sort of maintenance contracts, that sort of thing. Auto renew your financial plan monitoring services and set that up all in advance is a great way to, again, help get consistency of cash flow coming into your business. Because remember, at the end of the day, if you're not in business, your clients don't win. And you've got to remember that. Clients will appreciate if you set up programs that are going to simply allow you to continue to stay in business. Because when they put their investments and they've not just their investments, but their time and energy into working with you and building that relationship, they don't want you going anywhere. They want you to stick around. They want you to stay in business. They want you to be successful. Because if you're not successful, they're not successful. Now, the sixth one is the concept of monopoly. Warren Buffett is famous for investing in companies with a protective moat around them. The deeper and wider the moat, the harder it is for competitors to compete. So how can you better brand your products and services? Create your own financial planning process, to help build that moat around you. Remember, Dan Sullivan said it once. He says, if you name it, you own it. So if you're building that unique financial planning process to your business, you own that. And, there's a lot of good that comes from that, because that's your branding and that's what only you can offer. And if people want that, well, guess what? They have to come to you for it. So build that moat around you. Now, customer satisfaction. I can't speak about this, anymore. And I'm going to go into some great detail about this, because this one's important. The higher the satisfaction you have with your customers, the better. I mean, it just goes without saying. Better business means people are going to be happier. They're going to refer more. They're going to do more. They're going to, it's just better for everybody. But how do you really know for sure? How do you really know about customer satisfaction? You see, when we're smaller business, we intuitively know how satisfied our clients are, because we're dealing with them every day, and so we get a sense of that. But as we grow, it's quite possible to lose touch with our clients. But in order to maintain their loyalty, we need to be able to objectively measure their satisfaction level. So I've seen the comprehensive surveys. I know of companies that, for a fee, will do a full client customer satisfaction survey and interviews and, and a client-based analysis, and provide the business owner with a complete understanding of how satisfied their clients are. But I always wonder, how do we know for sure? I mean, I see big surveys as really kind of an imposition. The feeling you get when a company you respect asks you to fill out a survey for a chance to win something. You think, well, I respect the company, so okay, I'll do it. And then first thing you do is you get to the questionnaire and you check the progress bar to see how long the thing's going to be. And honestly, after the third page, I usually just stop. I say, look, I don't have the time to do this. It's just, I don't know what you're getting at. And, I ask myself, are all these questions really necessary to see if I'm satisfied or not? I mean, gosh, the questions are and sometimes are just ridiculous. And like, oh my God, you're going too far. It's taking too long. And what do I start doing? I start answering the questions in a way that will get me through the questionnaire quicker. And I don't think that does anything for anybody. Well, there is a better way, a much better way. The real question is, what is the likelihood of a client either repurchasing from you or referring you to a company or a friend? Isn't that really what we're looking for? Well, some really smart people at a company called Bain and Satmetrics, I believe is the name of the company, have developed a single question that is predictive of both repurchase and referral for clientele. What I can tell you is that this one question is very popular among the Fortune 500 companies, but it's even better suited for use with smaller companies. So, what's the magical question, and why is it so well suited to companies and small companies? Well, here's the question. On a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer our company to a friend or colleague? See, the creators of this question found that when clients answered this question with a 9 or a 10, they're usually, statistically more likely to repurchase from that company, refer that company to others, or do both. So, the creator of the question, he found that, that they were so much so really wanting to repurchase and refer, that those companies that were, high in that area were even more likely to grow. And the news of this information, so to speak, really, really resonated with the Fortune 500 companies, because now they had a way of being able to very quickly analyze whether or not a company was going to be able to grow or not based on the scoring that came from this question. So it was a very powerful question. Today, companies like Intuit, Southwest Airlines, they use this, and it's called the Net Promoter Score, as a way to quantify their customers' experience. Here's why using the Net Promoter Score is really well suited to a fee-based financial planning firm. So number one, it's easy. Simple easy. From start to finish, you can deploy this in less than 5 minutes. Now, the way I've seen it done, and I've done it in the past, is if you use Google Docs, and I don't know if you've ever used Google Docs, but if you use Google Docs, you can, with surprising ease, create a survey that you can copy and paste into an email, and the results are updated in real time on your system. So if you just go to YouTube and search for how to create a survey in Google Docs. You'll be overwhelmed with step-by-step videos on how to do it. It's super easy. The nice thing is it's free. You don't have to pay for any of the software. Another software program you can use, I've never used it, but I have participated in surveys that have been using it, so it is fairly popular one. It's one called SurveyMonkey. And I'm sure it's easy to use as well. I love Google Docs because it's free. And the surveys that I've done in the past, when I've done it, you send out the information. You can literally sit there, watch the survey, and in real time, the data starts coming in, and it's amazing. The graphs start to change, and it's amazing. It's all real time. It's pretty cool. Now, the other thing is, with it being super easy and it being one question that you're sending out to your clients, is your response rate will go through the roof. It's extremely high. It's just one question. So you can almost promote it as that. You can promote it as the one question survey that you're asking your clients. So they can literally open up their email, say, "That's a one question survey. Here's the question. That's an easy question. Answer whatever the checkbox is that you put." They hit it and hit submit, and they're done. So, definitely take advantage of it because it is easy. The other thing is that it provides you with a common language with any potential investors. Now, this is important. It may not be so important right now, but it will become important in the future. Don't underestimate this point. You may not even be thinking of selling your business right now, but by embracing the fee-based business model, you are by default creating something that is worth something to someone else. And believe me, there will come a time when you want to start thinking about your exit plan. The Net Promoter Score is becoming more and more of a requirement. And if you don't already have your score, most companies will require you to obtain it before they invest in your business. It's that simple. So don't plan for what is today. Plan for what will be. The Net Promoter Score is a great equalizer tool that companies are using when they're analyzing businesses. So, don't tune out at this point, because this Net Promoter Score, as easy as it is becoming more and more popular and more required by companies that are looking to invest in other companies. The third thing is that it's cheap. I mean, you don't need to hire an outside firm to deploy and analyze the data. I mean, I've done it where you just basically watch the data come in real time, and if you send it out at the right time of day, your clients are going to simply open it, answer it, and move on, and the data starts to come in pretty quickly. So, being that it's done on a free platform and being that it's done in a very, very inexpensive way and the data makes sense to you, it's a pretty amazing tool. The other thing is that it's predictive. Okay, most surveys, as you know, are long and time consuming. Most surveys ask questions that generate a lot of irrelevant data. The Net Promoter Score, it's proven methodology that asks one question that has been proven to predict the likelihood a customer will repurchase or refer you. The two things you really, really want to know. So definitely take advantage of the Net Promoter Score, and you'll just find some amazing things that come of it. So how do you roll this out? I'm just going to go through how to roll out this type of program. Well, number one is create the question survey in Google Docs. So I'm going to recommend that you do it in Google Docs because it's simple, it's easy, it's free, and it's somewhat fun. Number two, copy and paste. Once you've got that done, copy and paste the link to the survey, or in Google Docs, you can even just copy the question. There's an HTML code that you just copy, paste it in, and then when the client opens up the email, boom, there it is right there. They've got the question, they hit the answer, and it's all real time. So copy and paste it into the email and send it to all of your clients. And simply do this once a year. So choose one time of year when you know that it's a good time to do, and just simply do it every year. And you can start to track the data on that. By doing this in Google Docs, you can track your results from year to year. So when you do this, and I said about tracking it every year, you can basically say, okay, I'm going to do, my 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and you can it's the same question year after year, and it simply starts to give you some really, really good data going forward to see how things are progressing for you. Are things getting better, or are things getting worse? And so it allows you to focus in on that. And here's how you calculate the Net Promoter Score, because it's not just as easy as saying, okay, choose between 0 and 10, and then you go from there. There's a bit of a formula you use. So those who give you a 9 or 10 on the score, they're known as what you call a promoter for your business. Those who give you a 7 or an 8, they're known as your passives. Okay, so they're satisfied, but not likely to repurchase from you, or they're not likely to refer your company anytime soon. Then there's anyone who scored 0 to 6. They're what's known as the detractors. Okay, so they're the ones that, maybe they're just not satisfied. They're just, there's something keeping them from saying anything higher than that. Take the percentage of your customers who are promoters, so the 9 or 10s, and subtract the percentage of detractors. So here's an example. Excuse me. Let's say 45% of the customers you surveyed are promoters, and 20% are passives, and 35% are detractors. So here's what you do. You take the 45, take away 35, and you're left with 10. 10% is your net promoter score. Studies show that if your score is north of 15, you're above average. 10 to 15 is about average, and anything below that, obviously, it's below average. Now, to give you an example of one, Apple, by the way, has a score of around 70. People are extremely happy with Apple. That is a phenomenal score. So, I'm looking for 15 plus. Apple has 70. Well, the reason why it's one of the biggest tech companies in the world. All right, number 8. So the 8th attribute that we're going to look at is simply hub and spoke. And you've probably heard this word before, heard the phrase before, hub and spoke. Really, the question is, what extent can your business thrive without you? In most cases, financial planners score really, really low on this attribute because they remain involved in serving customers directly. That's the way it starts, that's the way it finishes for them. However, you need to ask yourself, do you want to be rich or famous? Remember the topic of, I think it was last episode 17, where I dove into the topic of being rich or famous? Go back. If you haven't listened to that episode, listen to it, because it's going to really highlight the difference between being rich and being famous. Step number 1, go back and listen to that. But bottom line is that you can't and shouldn't do it all, okay? So step number 1 in this whole process is hire an admin person as soon as possible. So in business, okay, when you get things started, you really want to hire an admin person as soon as possible. I remember years ago, somebody said to me, the first person you want to hire is a computer input person, basically an admin person. I thought, why would I want to do that? Well, believe me, as soon as I hired somebody to help on the admin side, which is basically all the pre-meeting and post-meeting work, as soon as I hired that person, I leveraged my time tremendously. So that was the most valuable person hire I have ever had in my business. So I would strongly recommend, even if it's part-time at first, just hire somebody to do all the pre and post meeting work. Then the second step is, once you've done that, you've got that kind of rocking and rolling, the second step is outsource your marketing implementation. And again, I talked about that in the last episode. Outsource your marketing implementation, not the marketing creation. That's got to come from you. It's the one thing you almost never want to outsource is your marketing creation, because it's got to be your voice and your tone, and it's got to speak from you directly. And it's very hard to hire somebody to promote your tone and the way you do things. So what you want to do is you want to develop autopilot marketing implementation systems, and then hire a virtual assistant to implement this for you. Okay, so it may be a combination of virtual and actual assistants, but the bottom line is you want to outsource this. You want to outsource the marketing implementation. Then, once you've got that going, now believe me, once you get to step 2, if you've got this rocking and rolling, you are going to be having a thriving business. You are going to be making an extremely high income. Your clients are going to be really happy because they're being serviced. You've got marketing going. You feel good. It's a great position to be. Now, the third thing you want to do. Now you want to really step up the outsourcing and outsource your product implementation to other professionals, okay? We're outsourcing our, the investment side of things. So we oversee all of it. We make sure that we're in control of all of it and we're monitoring all of it. But the bottom line is I just didn't have time as things started to grow for me. I didn't have time to do the research that was necessary to keep on top of the markets and what was going on in that. So, individual security selection, oh my gosh, who had time for that? I just ran out of time. So So I needed a solution. Well, we started hiring that out, and that's why we've hired out the investment solutions that we've had. We've also hired out the living benefit solutions. We've got a great living benefit specialist that we work with. Some of the life insurance side of thing, we have some really great high-end on the life side for some advanced concepts that we use in advanced strategies, because at the end of the day, sure, I get how to do it, and I can identify the challenges and the issues and the needs, and I can identify when to bring them in. But you know what? They're specialists at this, and believe me, it works quite well. I mean, when you've got a team that you can turn to for all of these solutions, so the outsourcing living benefits, outsourcing the life insurance, outsourcing the executive compensation plans, outsourcing the group medical benefits, outsourcing the group investment plans, man, you've got a solid team that you can turn to for any requirement, for any need that a client may have. And so it just allows you to truly be that quarterback where you can recognize exactly what plays need to be called and then start to execute those plays. Step 4, manage everything. So once that's all done, the question is, how do you keep all of this in order? How do you keep it all managed? Well, you manage everything through your financial planning process for clients, because by developing your financial planning process around all of this, you're able to say, okay, you know when to bring in and do reviews on all the different, on your insurance reviews. You know when to do reviews of group benefits. You know when to do reviews on the investments. You know when to do all of this because you're in control of it through your financial plan. So when you're building your financial planning process, incorporate the review portion of it so that you can oversee all of that. And again, that's what clients are paying you for. They're paying you to be on top of everything and to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. And that's exactly how you do it. So this approach will simply provide you with a better financial planning product. You'll have an actual team that you can turn to, when you recognize the certain need for a client. So, a lot of information we've gone through today. I mean, there's a tremendous amount there. And we could do a whole episode on each individual attribute if we wanted to. But if you focus on the attributes and really focus on, go through just like I have and re-listen to this episode, talk about look at your financial performance. And if you want to, you can just sort of map it out and say, okay, what do I think is a good a good discount rate to apply to all the different revenue streams. You can actually start to build a spreadsheet that if you key in the information, it will actually give you what an expected value is for your business. So that may be a motivator as well. If you've got that spreadsheet put together and you can say, okay, this revenue is low risk, so that means that it wouldn't necessarily need as high of a discount rate on it. And then you say, okay, for the last 12 months, my annual financial planning fees are X, and my annual investment and oversight fees is Y, and then the annual insurance revenues is Z. Put all that together, you can actually key in what you feel the return multiple is, or the return, the discount that you'd apply to that future value. And you could actually have a model that simply keeps track of what your business is worth to someone else going forward. So if ever anybody came and offered to purchase your business, you can actually reverse engineer where their number came from and see if it makes sense to you. Growth potential, always focus on the growth potential. So financial performance, growth potential, reliance, let's not be too reliant on any one company, employee, or customer or client. I would never feel comfortable having, if you had, for example, say 2 clients, and 50% of your revenue came from each. I mean, that's a pretty risky environment to be in. So make sure you do diversify your reliance on any one support or employee or client. Cash flow, cash is king. Always focus on that, and use the solvency example. I've built that into our Salesforce system. So my bookkeeper every week, she just simply goes in, keys in the numbers. It's just 2 numbers that she's putting in: the actual cash on hand divided by the next 60 days payables, and so we've got that all historically tracked, and I can just quickly update that report, and boom, I know all the information. The recurring revenue, build that into your practice. Make sure you're building that in. That's, again, what the fee-based financial planning model is all about, is to build in that recurring revenue. Monopoly, that's when you start branding yourself. If you're the only one that does that particular process, you're the only one that does that process. And so people are simply only going to be able to get that from you. Customer satisfaction, it's very simple. I mean, once we've gone through it, I think you can appreciate how important it is and how easy it is. So it's just simply 1 email a year that you send out People put it together, send it out to all of your clients. People go on, they click on their score or what their rating is. You can even keep it so that it's anonymous. You can keep it so it's not anonymous. You can choose how to do that. And it's all done through Google Docs. Once you've got it set up once, then it's just very easy to implement. And I would almost recommend just doing it now. Just get out there and send out that email with the Net Promoter Score question. And once again, I'll just reiterate what that question is. What's the sorry, I just got to look at my notes here. On a scale of 1 to 10, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer our company to a friend or colleague? And that's the question, and it's so powerful. So that's customer satisfaction. And then the final one, hub and spoke. This is a biggie. And I think I've given you some solutions that will allow you to become less of a hub and spoke business. And as long as you keep these at top of mind and revisit this on an ongoing basis, you're going to build yourself a really, really strong practice. So, get out there. And as I said, fail forward, just do something. Take one item I've talked about in this or in any previous episode and commit to doing it. To just do whatever's necessary to implement it. As small as you want it to be or as big as you want it to be, just do one thing. Keep failing forward, as I was doing when I was learning how to get up on one ski with a double boot. I kept on failing and then every time I did, I said, okay, now that doesn't work. Now I know that doesn't work, and I know this doesn't work. And all of a sudden, I tried one thing, boom, it worked, and it was effortless. And I did it again and again and again, and it just kept on working. So once you get it, failing forward is a very powerful tool. And then ask questions, email me. What I would love it if you could do is just to make it the podcast a little more little broader, is if you can record your question. Just simply record it into your computer, turn it into an MP3 or whatever if it's a WAV file or something like that, and email it to me. Email that question so I can play that question on the air and then answer it on the air as well. So that would be great if you could do that. Just simply get out there and build yourself a better business. There's no reason why you can't do it. You've got all the tools available to you. Get out there and do it.
You've been listening to Scott E. Plaskett, a certified financial planner and industry veteran in the world of fee-based financial planning. Want free resources to help you build a better fee-based financial planning firm? Visit ilovefinancialplanning.com right now to register for Scott's Inner Circle email list, where you'll get front-of-the-line updates on the latest resources that are driving profits to Scott's fee-based financial planning practice. All of the resources are pulled directly from the highly acclaimed fee-based financial Planning Mastery Academy. Go now to ilovefinancialplanning.com. Build a better business and make more money with your fee-based financial planning practice today.